So I recently just dropped a video on all of the canon winners in Total Drama Island. We know they have alternative endings, but if it was in universe, one linear storyline, which of the alternative endings makes more sense for that person to win? And I went through every single season of Total Drama Island from the OG all the way to the reboots. But upon doing that and rewatching so many seasons and episodes, I couldn't help but notice the slow descent into pure evil that is Chris Mclean. Now, this is a topic that's always covered in the TDI community and fandom about the downward slope of Chris Mclean as a host, but going back through and rewatching it, it's actually funny to watch this descent into madness as he makes these challenges crazier. He's way more torturous to the campers, and he's doing any and everything for ratings, views, and his own narcissistic excitement. But I wanted to make a video detailing and pinpointing where did this descent actually start and come from. Was Chris always initially this evil? And if not, when did it start to come into play, and what were the reasons for that? And I think there's a few that I could point out that make sense for Total Drama Island and the reason that they started to do this with Chris as a character. So we're gonna go ahead and break it down. As usual, if you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the slow descent into evilness of Chris Mclean. I think we all can come to the agreement that Chris was pretty chill and mellow in season 1 of Total Drama Island. He more so was just doing his job. He was the host, and I think a lot of this is highlighted in the challenges that the campers, simple things such as awake-a-thons and dodgeball games, talent shows, face your biggest fear, create a 3-course meal, skydiving, and there were your occasional sharks, piranhas, and other animals being stuck in the forest, chased by a psycho killer. But all those things are tame in comparison of what was to come later on in the series. I say all this to say that because season 1 is the beginning of the show and it's in its infancy, there's more variety in the competitive event that they have the campers doing initially early on in the series. And I think as they did more and more episodes, they found it difficult to still come up with new original ideas and still make them fun, entertaining, exciting to see the campers get put through. And I think that's why we get things in the later seasons where all the seasons are revolved around specific themes like action with movies and shows, and like world tour going around the world, obviously. But we'll talk about those more when we get to it. But the main problem I think diminished over the course of those seasons compared to season 1 is that all those challenges boggled down to just races. It wasn't really any variety. It was just races filled with obstacles, roadblocks, and different things to deter the campers from completing it easy. Whereas in season 1, it was a lot of different things and elements that brought out more of the personality of each of these characters that factored in differently, such as the dodgeball game I mentioned earlier, how they made a comeback due to Duncan being from Juvie and learning that dodgeball tactic, or hook, line, and Screamer, where Duncan and Gwen's knowledge of scary movies made it easier for them to survive, made everyone else fall victim to the stereotypes of serial killer movies and everything like that, and they of course won the challenge because of it. Things like that. And I think the transition of making it all go to races, it definitely connect with Chris's descent into this evil and craziness, and you'll see as I explain more. But more evidence to support the idea that they lost creativity with these challenges is the fact that they eventually made another entire show strictly just races, the Redunculous race. And I told you guys in my canon winners video that I watched the Redunculous race but only one time, so I don't remember much of it. But that's the point where I fell off the series, and not to say it was bad, because I hear everyone says they love it, and in my comments you guys were telling me I need to rewatch it. But the lack of creativity with the challenges and what they were doing, that kind of what made me not want to watch it anymore. And I think it connects directly with Chris's descent, because with them only doing the same challenge essentially over and over again, the idea of a race and just changing how they get from point A to point B, they bolstered his personality to make it more entertaining in a sense, to make it over the top, more dangerous, just seem overall different, even though at heart, once again, like I keep saying, it's still just a race. People start to have a problem with this, obviously, which is why in a redonkulous race, Don was the host and not Chris. But now with the reboots, Chris is back and he's way more tame, kind of like how he was in season 1, actually more tame than he was in season 1. Let's talk about more of season 1 Chris. He went light on them, to say the least. For example, in the Awake-a-thon, where all the campers had to do was stay up, whoever stayed up the longest on either team wins their team invincibility, he did boring things to get them to break, read them nursery rhymes, play slow songs, and things of that nature. And a clip I found funny when going back and watch season 1 is in the episode where they all had to face their biggest fear, and Jeff, he was scared of the clouds and hail and ice raining down and pelting on him, and they had a cloud do it and follow him around, and Trent asked him specifically, can they make the cloud go lower and pelt him even harder, and Chris told him, you're one sick dude. But yeah, if he was to answer that question later on, he would say, of course. He would have said, you didn't even have to ask. So it's just funny seeing this scene in hindsight. But overall, season 1 Chris, he wasn't the caricature that we would get later on, and we saw glimpses in season 1. His ego really starts to take shape and form in season 2, and then it's just completely over in World Tour. So let's get into total drama action. Now, in total drama action, Chris was relatively okay. It's probably the best way I could put it. More so than him being cruel in the challenges, which he still was, torturing the campers, but something about each of the challenges having to do with different type of movies, from horror to crime to love and fairy tales, myths and all this and that. A lot of them circumstances can be explained away in a sense, but where it can't is his ego. It completely takes over this season, and it becomes his whole entire character, that he's a blazing narcissist. And we see that immediately with the trophies. We know at the end when they're eliminating someone in season 1, they get the marshmallows, where in season 2 they get a trophy of Chris himself if they're safe. Now obviously this is used to represent an Emmy, an Oscar, Golden Globe, and things of that nature. It makes a lot of sense, but making it yourself is kind of hilarious, and it's nothing short of being a narcissist. But on top of that, there was an occasion where I thought he actually cared about the campers. He was a good person, and I think it was a scene where they were drowning or something of the sort, and he was worried about them, but Chef didn't really give a fuck. But Chris, he was screaming that they need to save them. I'm like, see, okay, he's a caring person, kind of like we saw in season 1 with him and Ezekiel. But then he goes on to say no campers equals no show equals no money, no paycheck, and I can't live my luxurious lifestyle. So he really only cared about himself, not necessarily the campers dying. So like I said, he's relatively okay in this season, but he definitely takes a step forward as far as his descent into the caricature that I mentioned, where this is his entire personality and goal as the host. He's at this point not even a host no more. He's just doing anything he can for his own entertainment, not even for the ratings of the show anymore. It's like something that he wants to do. But like I said, at the same time, because of the nature and theme of this season, it kind of gets more of a pass in a sort of way. As for World Tour and going forward, I cannot make any of those same excuses for Chris Mclean. Now we're on to World Tour, and this is the last one we're going to talk about in depth, kinda. We're going to run through the other series and talk about them for a second. That he dives full into insanity, that gets him arrested, that ultimately leads to a reboot where we get a whole new Chris basically. I think this is the case where he goes like full on manic and like violent, and you see that from the very beginning. I remember rewatching the first episode when I was making my Canon Winners video and seeing him hit Owen with a pie, and I immediately thought, what the fuck? Because as we know, Chris,
he is soft. We seen him get kicked in the balls. We seen Duncan yoke him up in a season prior. A lot of the campers bullied him. No offense to him, but to see him be violent towards one of the kids because I believe Owen didn't want to get on the plane, it was just crazy to see going back. I'm not like, I don't remember this. And to be honest, hitting a kid is probably the least of the crimes he committed, but seeing him openly do it, it's not within a challenge, so you can make an excuse for him like I was doing in action where, oh, they're doing a challenge, they're trying to win $1 million and things go wrong. No, he went out his way to hit him with a pot. So I just found that crazy to see once again going back and watch it. Another thing was the songs that he just threw in during random challenges and moments and events, and he strictly just did this for his own entertainment, and I knew it was put in their contracts, and to be honest, they made some bangers because of this, so I'm not even mad at him for this one, but just forcing them to sing about whatever whenever, it was just like had to be for entertainment, for ratings, just to make shit harder on them when they're in the middle of about to die, and now they have to sing a song on the spot, no practice, no rehearsal, none of that. So he was just throwing any and everything at them at this point. I feel like there was no going back with his character. Well, I guess they actually went back in a reboot, but as far as the next few seasons, they decided to maintain keeping him as this invasive, overbearing, violent, and downright sadistic Chris. There's a lot of challenges that they could have died on within these first 3 seasons, but come season 4 and 5, I don't think anyone should have made it off any of them islands. We get into the revenge of the island and everything from this point on, and I think this is kind of the one that is easiest to tell that he tried to put them in every possible dead situation, in every challenge, in every way, shape, or form. I mean, them even being on this radioactive island, they already was battling sharks and bears and all these different animals that could kill you in season 1. In this one, they basically battling all different type of mutants on top of that, and still be putting it in these death scenarios, these booby trap situations and everything like that. And it's funny enough that it takes a whole other season after this for him to even get arrested for a crime of radioactive waste, when, like I said, he committed much worse crimes already throughout these seasons on live television. Again, I think accumulated to this point because of the lack of variety with challenges and what they were able to do. The creativity of that lacking, they decided to put it and amp up Chris's personality. He seemingly made these challenges more interesting than they seemed at face value. Now, once again, a lot of people hated this path that he went on, but it did overall create a topic that we all continuously talk about in the TDI fandom. So in a sense, it kind of did work. It kind of did also get them to listen to the fans and revert him back to how he used to be. Overall, it was a gradual downfall, just kind of like the show in general. Well, I wouldn't say the show was a gradual downfall, because World Tour probably was the best season to me, but after World Tour, definitely, because the first 3 seasons were the best in my opinion, and then it just was downhill after that. It was the same with the challenges, and it was the same with Chris's character. You guys let me know what you think about Chris down below. What point do you think he officially turned evil? Was this always intended? And do you think the challenges had something to do with it, like I believe? Also, after rewatching World Tour and listening to all the songs, I think my next Total Drama video is going to be ranking all the songs from worst to best based off obviously context of the song, the scene, the challenge, everything like that. So you guys let me know down below if you would like to see that video. As usual, leave a like, comment, subscribe though, and I'm out.